Hello everybody, NinjaRoU here, and it's probably around New Year when I'm releasing this, although I'm not completely certain. Currently I'm planning on recording DLU's winter testing for a Christmas video, and also into any of the reshade, ray tracing shader tech that people like Jumbo Gauge and CDM Pants have been using. I think it should still be pretty cool. There's some new content for DLU which I think you're all going to enjoy seeing, and hopefully that video will be being recorded later tonight, maybe. I was in voice chat with Darwin. I know Darwin's using the Discord name Max, but it's always going to be Darwin in my head. Yeah, again, so the thing is, last time I included something in the video saying I was doing an introduction, I went off script, and somehow in the edit, the screen may have gone sort of black and sort of fuzzy. Yeah, and what have I done to counter that? I've gone off script right at the beginning. Again, I was saying something along the lines of I'm hopefully going to be recording that later tonight. I was in a voice chat with Max/Darwin earlier, and I know he was literally uploading stuff to a server, to the Patcher server, so that we could do it tonight. So I'm really hopeful, because if it's tonight, I actually get to do it, and I'm going to stream, and no one will watch the stream, but it'll still be fun. Anyway, with that aside, what am I actually going to be talking about today? Hey, I'm back on script, it's cool. Well, even though that aside itself was off script. Actually, that's a good question, because I have a topic, but as of writing the script, I have no idea what points I'm going to cover. So, the vague topic. A summary of 2019. Woo, fun title. And this is also going to be, by some degree of necessity, a short-term prediction video, as I'm recording this before Christmas has even happened, meaning that I'm lacking information about DLU's closed beta, although any information we gain on that front will be important enough, almost certainly, to warrant an announcement video of its own. So basically, I'm going to be talking about stuff that's happening in the short-term future, as though that stuff were the present and short-term past, and stuff in the short-term past and further past I'll be talking about as though that's just the past, and some stuff in the future will be spoken about as though it's the past, whilst all the future stuff will be spoken about as though it's the future. That wasn't scripted, so I'm relatively surprised I made it through there. Basically, this video is chronologically weird, and since this video is already chronologically messed up, I might as well mess it up further by throwing in some predictions about the stuff after this video releases, as well as the stuff before this video released, but after it was recorded, lazily contrived to look like that. Okay, so, what's happened this year? Well, the greatest talking point is the most obvious one. DLU has taken testers for its closed beta phase. You've got to love the past tense there when that hasn't happened yet as of recording. And congratulations to all of you who got in. I'm just going to roll with it. If I keep calling myself out on this, I'm never going to make it through the script. If I were a good human being who wasn't recording this in advance, then I'd be able to potentially congratulate people who watched this channel, who got in, or something. Sadly, however, I'm not a good human. Basically, as of the time of recording, we know that we're going to have a closed beta selection this year. As discussed previously, I'm willing to bet they will happen on New Year, but regardless, testers should have been announced by the time this video releases. However, people following DLU will also have seen the winter testing event. This is happening the night I'm writing this, or tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have been able to stream it and we'll get a video posted in time for Christmas. Anyway, with the winter testing event came client modding on a scale most people will never have seen. And in the amount, again, you can tell I've gone off script, and not only is it stuff that most people have never seen done in client modding, but nobody has seen it done to this scale and distributed to this many clients. There is one video where Neil, I believe, who's DLU's community manager, created a new world, and I think that Professor Brickkeeper's Twitter also includes a recreation of a scene from some concept art, from some LU concept art onto Happy Flower. But client mods have always been something small. People may have seen on my channel a couple of things which look off, and I assume I've actually posted the footage, with my client, including hills where they shouldn't have been, and missing paths to the monument, stuff like that. All of this was achieved by client modding, specifically using Happy Flower, but no client mod has ever been distributed on any particular scale. And actually, this isn't quite true. LCDR's rewrite of the client-server connection has been largely used by certain elements of the community, but that's not a piece of tech which produces any obviously visible results. Here, DLU has created and released 2 new worlds, alongside hosting Frostburg, it's B-U-R-G-H, I'm almost 100% certain that's incorrect, although loads of people do it without the H. Is that Frostburg? Frostburg sounds better, because it's like an iceberg, and so it's a pun, and we know LU loved its pun, so it's probably meant to be Frostburg. To form this year's, and no, I got all the tenses right, of course, but of course it'll be last year when this video goes out, winter testing event. This shows a huge amount of tech which may not be immediately obvious. Firstly and most obviously, they're demonstrating the ability to add items to LU's database. I've discussed previously how large development bro adding would represent work made available to the community, as well as how it has been, albeit in a limited form, and here we can clearly see its potential. But we can see a lot more than simply adding rows to the database. This is with an old, and quite frankly relatively broken version of Happy Flower. From there, they had to edit the items into the live game so that everything fits together properly. However, unlike any small client mods I've tinkered with in the past, they were creating entirely new items. Mods you may have seen on here mostly consisted of ripping off infrastructure from existing items, whereas this mod required complete understanding. Well, okay, this is LU. It required a huge degree of understanding mixed with a touch of trial and error, of how all the different components in the client interact with the server and with one another. And after working through lots of bugs, trying to understand how parts of LU were hacked together, and just generally bashing their heads at all the problems encountered, they managed to create new items complete with physics, such as collision hitboxes. That sounds like a small thing, but trust me, it wasn't. That sounds like I was involved in it. I wasn't, but I watched them do it, and it seemed painful. Even rendering was a challenge, involving baking lighting, which LU doesn't render dynamically for the sake of speed, into the model, and then trialing this across different components to achieve desired effects from LU. The best example of this is the buildings in Brick Annex. If you wear a white hat, you'll find that the shade of white is affected by the ambient lighting, whilst the lights in shop fronts in Brick Annex somehow avoid this to give a sort of neon appearance. I've mentioned previously about times when LU feels hacked together, and about not having examples. To me, this feels like another example which I couldn't think of when writing that previous script. It's something which isn't used anywhere near the same extent anywhere else in the game, and so it feels as though it was forced into the code to allow a single area to use it in a very inefficient way, which the devs then discovered when trying to replicate this effect, this neon effect, later on. Oh, and finally, there's the challenge of generating a checksum from the world files, the server's version of which must match the client's. The client does this automatically, but the server has to match the checksum, otherwise the client will automatically disconnect. I believe officially this is DLU tech, which they do have, although I suspect other people in the community have also worked out how to do it, or just how to bypass the checks client side, which, as I've mentioned in the past, you can never totally trust a client. The client being the computer program in this instance, rather than a person, and because although actually you can't trust the client either in this instance, because it's the client who will be editing the client, and so whilst this check does appear client side, it is something which is potentially vulnerable. However, congratulations to the DLU team aside, this is far bigger than a single testing event. Firstly, given the knowledge and experience of this community, it would be virtually impossible for a development team to release a new world in such a way as to have it be playable only on their servers. Things have been suggested, such as a cross-server mod patcher, which would allow servers to check which mods their clients are running, but again, it's fully within the ability of the more experienced users in the community to bypass that in much the same way as LCDR bypassed LU's original network protocol. Any large server developer would have the ability to find the client mods which make the world work and re-implement it on their server. I bring this up not because I think the server developers are going to rip off one another's work, but because it makes something clear: no one will ever get a monopoly on worlds. In the scenario where there is the least trading of worlds and sort of sharing of worlds between servers, that's pretty much that low level of trading, low level of use of worlds between servers and sharing of them is only going to occur because the developers themselves choose not to use one another's world/content. In, to my mind, the best case scenario, we get clients for all the servers with their own patcher, which uploads their mods to the client, and these mods are shared within the development community. And whilst it may seem far-fetched with only DLU's developers having demonstrated this ability, I can tell you it really isn't. Uchu's Vincent and Opcrux's Simon both have their own client database editors, which, although neither is perfect, both have the ability to add items, or rows in the case of the database, to the game. Happy Flower is publicly available. LDD and converters from LDD, for those of you who don't know, that's Lego Digital Designer, to OBJ format files both exist in the public domain, as do converters between the OBJ, that's a standard 3D modelling object file, and NIF, which is the internal Gamebryo file format. Converters exist between the OBJ and the NIF file formats. In short, there is the technology to create items, to create worlds, and to add those to the client's database. There are definitely still issues with this. Firstly, the problem of component interactions. Watching DLU's future content team work on this, it's become clear how weirdly LU handles components and their interactions. It's definitely not something which is publicly fully understood, or evenly fully understood privately. And so whilst it's easy enough to edit in a single object and maybe its render component so that we can see it, making it smashable, adding a drop table, animate it, or even stopping the player walking right through it are all non-trivial challenges, most of which I've never seen completely done. Even exporting objects from Blender in a usable fashion required CDM Pants to pay someone to write him a Blender script. Secondly, the problem of the checksum. As I said, whilst I know people have been working in areas very close to this, I don't know that the problem of the checksum generation has heavily been focused on by devs outside DLU, because, let's face it, we already have all the checksums, and client modding is hardly the main aim of any of these servers. Certainly, it's not the main aim when compared to just getting a server up and running. Heck, it's not even the main aim of DLU. This was sort of an aside for them. But these two problems aren't huge, certainly not insurmountable. There are existing programs which can do the checksum generation, according to DLU, and as I mentioned, other users outside of DLU have demonstrated stuff which looks like they have the ability to generate checksums. I've even done it a couple of times myself, albeit with possibly the weirdest workaround ever. And the first problem, that objects aren't properly understood, that's hardly the greatest problem. We have the ability to add new items, to create new models, and to place them into the game. Whilst not everything is there, there's definitely enough stuff for people to start building new worlds. And that's the biggest thing I'd say has come out of 2019. This has been a year which has seen me theorise about the impact of Rain's cross-server mod loader, which is totally different to the cross-server mod loader I was theorising about earlier. But when it came down to it, it hasn't been a single well-known DLU dev which has made this possible. It's been people from across the LEGO community, and that's not just the LU community, that is the LEGO community. People just randomly working on LDD, or LEGO Digital Designer again, or less randomly working on it, such as people who are trying to work on alternatives which allow you to directly export to OBJ files, for whom this is obviously a huge thing for them to get, because that would mean they'd have access to all the bricks. It is only a matter of time now before this is something which is far more achievable. Internally, DLU even has a tutorial for working with Happy Flower, and now I can't release it. And CDM Pants, who's working closely with Darwin to create all these new items, has been documenting his complete pipeline for adding items to the game. Whether or not this will be public is unclear. My guess is it might not be. But it's definitely reaching the stage where this is seen as viable. The fact that there is a pipeline that exists means it is only a matter of time before other people work out what the pipeline is. So where are we now with this? Before I move on to talk about LCDRU, well, we have the tools. They're not perfect, but they exist. Everyone here now has the potential to create their own game. It's not going to be easy, but this year has set us up for community world creation, and that is pretty cool. Quite honestly, more than any sort of single server event that's happened this year, I'd say this is, it doesn't matter hugely the fact that we've got a winter testing event that's letting people in. People are going to be let in for closed beta anyway. It doesn't even matter having closed beta this year. We would have had it anyway at some point. But this is something that I saw coming, an increase in client modding. I thought it'd be the community doing it at this stage, and there has been work on it from the community. We've seen, I predicted that Simon's, I think I predicted anyway in my What's Next for LU video, Simon's FDB editor coming. Didn't see Winston's coming, but hey, they did. And yeah, I think more than any single project, it's the stuff that just various people from across the projects have done, and even from outside the LU community have done, which has made this year what it has, and it's truly defined it. Yeah, I was off script there. And then there's LCDRU. April saw LCDRU letting more testers into the game after LCDR completed a network rewrite, this modded protocol I've been discussing. There's more rewriting and future-proofing to come, and LCDRU's letting in testers in smaller increments than DLU, but he's still hard at work, and I think it's actually worth discussing this mod, which I keep bringing up. That's good grammar. Which I keep bringing up, because this really felt like something which was really cool and just quite new for this community. So, a touch of background. LU was insecure. It's the reason that literally any of this was possible. It's the reason why teenagers managed to work out what was going on in the packets the servers were sending to the game, and RACnet itself, the server system off of which this is based, isn't the only flawed bit of code. The devs at LU took RACnet and then re-implemented bits of it which already existed for little obvious reason, often creating code which carries out unnecessary operations simply for the sake of using one part of the protocol as a default and minimising use of another part. I should clarify, I'm not insulting the original devs when I say stuff like this. No project with lots of people has clean code, and it's not a reflection on the developers as people. That makes it sound like I'm implying anyone's code could be a reflection on them as a person, but I mean it's not a reflection on the developers as individual programmers. But LCDR this year released a file which can be inserted into any client and which replaces the insecure Racket communications with the now standard TCP/UDP connection, off of which the game can run. It wasn't without teething problems, but it hugely increased, decreased, world loading times, especially from players living far away from LCDRU's physical server. And whilst there's no new testing planned, and since my last video I'm backing off on generating hype at the expense of devs' well-being, I do have some for LCDRU planned and in the works for future. Basically, I'm still really excited about LCDRU. And finally, I've mentioned this in previous videos a lot, but this year saw a growth spurt from Operation Crooks, and long may it continue. We also saw Uchu increase in prominence to the point where we actually have a well-respected and well-developed open source project, something which we haven't seen in ages, and by ages I mean ever. That's been your recap, so time for some short predictions. And seriously, I don't know how long I've been recording for now. I know it says someone is, yeah, I've been recording for 17 minutes, but no, seriously, this script was like 5 pages long. I didn't think this would take such a short time to record. I'm aware it's still probably ages compared to most YouTube videos you people listen to, but hey, you knew what you were getting into when you came here. Probably, if you'd seen enough on my videos. And if you didn't know what you were getting into when you came here, sorry. So, predictions. I do expect a new opportunity to play from LCDRU this year. LCDRU stated last time that 1.5 years was too long to wait in between tester entries, and the time of release this year will be last year. And since that test was in April last year, that would give us reason to hope for more testers this year. This is dependent on its database rewrite working out fine, though, so no pressure to him. I'm in no way guaranteeing that there will be an LCDRU test. No, this is a guarantee in any way. This is me speaking as a fan. DLU obviously are planning on hosting closed beta. If I'm honest, I expect that it might be a month or so after New Year before we actually get into the servers, and possibly more depending on how many testers are let in. Still no number has been given though, as of the time of writing, but it will definitely be coming this year. My money is against open beta anytime this year, however, and possibly not even the year after. Meaning there might be, depending on how many testers they let in this time around, further opportunities to join the closed beta before open beta. And finally, I suspect that nothing will happen on the client modding front. Yeah, seriously. I know I've just dedicated a large portion of my video, and quite honestly, more videos on my channel than I've dedicated to anything else, to talking about client modding and client mods, but the one thing I've learnt is that it's not something which people see as easy to take up. That is to some extent because it isn't, but I don't think it's as hard as people necessarily think. Like, I managed to, come on, it can't be that difficult. And combined with the fact that patching Happy Flower has caused problems for many people, I'm not necessarily expecting this to happen soon. However, I am really happy to be proven wrong. The thing about having a community is that no single person needs to develop a perfect ability to create worlds. Multiple people can work together and team up to do so. Some people can make LDD models, maybe some people can get good at rendering them and converting them to NIPs. Others learn about the physics side of things and produce the physics component required. Concept artists can design worlds, and those who have Happy Flower working can produce them. I'm personally being a realist and betting against our first server-independent world being created next year, but I'm really happy to be proven wrong. And one thing I should say is to anyone who thinks they may be interested in producing or working with other people to produce a world, I'm willing to bet that, okay, assuming any world you produce is appropriate, that developers will be interested in actually adding your world to the game. It's not going to be something, assuming it's reasonably high quality, it's not going to be something that you produce and gets ignored. People will be interested. OpCrooks will be careful, I think. They'll mention thinking about an alpha like they have in the past, but I think they know their best bet is just to press ahead and to get something impressive before they officially release anything, because as an ex-member of... I'll have you know I'm still a member. I don't know why I wrote that in the script. As a current member of LNA, yeah, releasing too early, dangerous. And we've also seen that with Looney. I think OpCrooks are now well enough used to what happens when you release too early that they'll be wary of releasing an alpha anytime too soon. And so I expect they'll wait until maybe sometime late next year, but I doubt it. And finally, I just hope we'll continue to see steady progress from Uchu. Hopefully this includes advances on world editing and similar, but even just a reliable open source server could allow someone to create a low-key public server. I don't think we'll get any public servers with owners totally independent from the rest of the LU community, certainly not ones which get large, because that really leaves a bad taste in the mouths of parts of the community who've seen what other such servers have led to in the past. However, if we get someone like Vincent working with someone like, say, Knight of Faith, who has expressed an interest in hosting a server, or expressed an interest insofar as other people have said, hey, we want a server, and he's been like, well, if enough people do, maybe. And maybe that could happen. I don't think it's likely. It is late 2020 at the very earliest, mostly because it's not going to happen at any time around the DLU, potential DLU, LCDIU or Crux releases, and it probably won't happen at all. But it's pretty fun that this could now be an option, and if it is, I'm definitely excited about it, because it provides the first opportunity for people to hang out using LU. Anyway, I've discussed DLU, LCDIU, OpCrux, Uchu, and modding. I've discussed the past, very much in the Charles Dickens A Christmas Carol theme. I've discussed the LU's Ghost of Christmas Past, LU's Ghost of Christmas Present, and then LU's Ghost of Christmas Future. So I think that's about it. A huge thanks to everyone in the community for making last year what it has been, and I look forward to this year, not this next year. I've got to get better when writing the scripts and work out when I'm actually publishing it. As usual, subscribe to Devs, there'll be links below. I've been NinjaValU, and thank you for watching. So long. Okay, let's pretend I didn't say so long, and we'll edit that out. And there's now half a chance he's just going to leave this in the video, just to embarrass me. Yeah, okay.